Good morning. My name is Emily Foster, and I am a first grader. Here at Wesleyan, today Mrs. Cates and I have the privilege of introducing my child.
After graduating from the University of Virginia, Emily's papa served in Vietnam and achieved the rank of major while serving in the Army Reserve. After earning his law degree from the University of Louisville, he served as an assistant county attorney and chief district court judge in Guilford County. He retired from the bench in 2004 and currently serves as a North Carolina Emergency District Court judge. Emily's papa has been a member of Pleasant Garden Baptist Church for over 25 years and is proud to have 3 children and 4 grandchildren.
Please help us welcome my papa, the Honorable Judge Thomas G. Foster Jr.
Let me say good morning to everybody. Good morning. I am overwhelmed. I'll be honest with you. I'm overwhelmed. I sat there and listened to these young people and the other speakers, and it's quite frankly, it's overwhelming. I heard a mayor of Greensboro a long time ago give a commencement speech, and the weather was threatening, and he stood up and said, never, never, never quit. And he sat down. That was his speech. With weather threatening, that was probably a pretty good idea, but it was a pretty good idea anyway. I was sitting and listening to Ms. Moffitt, and I could say, let's run that back, let's listen to that again, and we go home. Ms. Moffitt, where is she? Ms. Moffitt, I'm just overwhelmed. We've heard the message. I think we've heard the message that God wanted you to hear this morning as grandparents. We have heard the words from the Lord that you needed to hear. And that it overwhelms me. The talent, the young people, Dr. Nicola's comments about education, and it takes a lot of pressure off of me because no matter what I say, we've heard what we should say. So it takes a lot of pressure off. Thank you, Ms. Moffitt. That is wonderful. I want to thank Ms. Cates for the invitation. Where is she? Where'd she go? Over there. Thank you. I've known her a long, long time. I've got a lot of love and respect for this lady. She taught my son in kindergarten. Wonderful, fond memories of a long, long time ago. And I thank you for that. I thank Dr. Brown and Dr. Nicola, the other folks here, for the opportunity to do this, to speak before you. And I don't take it lightly at all about the opportunity. But High Point's a wonderful place. I have real fond memories of High Point, and some I maybe shouldn't make a personal point about, but I just feel led to tell you this. My first day on the bench was December the 1st, 1980, and it was the day before my other son was born, Jeffrey. I had to leave work to go to the hospital when he was born the next day. But the first day I ever was a judge, I was just young and didn't know what I was doing, quite frankly, as a professional person for the first day. And it was criminal court in High Point over here at the old courthouse. How many remember the old courthouse? Everybody ever go there? If you don't want to admit you went to the courthouse, that's okay. That's all right. I would understand that if you didn't want to tell me you knew where the old courthouse was. But the old facility was a little bitty structure. It could fit in here, quite frankly. And I went in and held criminal court on my very first day. Anybody here know Jim Morgan? Who knows Jim Morgan? I'm sure you've heard of Jim Morgan. He's my very first case, and he and I smile about that occasionally. My very first time I ever heard a case was Jim Morgan on a particular traffic case. And in the morning, there were lots of other cases, and a lot of pleas of guilty, and then in the afternoon we had trials. So the trials came up at 2 o'clock, and There was a DWI trial for drunk driving, an assault charge on a female, and a larceny charge that took all afternoon. So here I am, a former county attorney, and I prosecuted welfare fraud for Guilford County for about 6 years. So I had this, I guess you'd call it a prosecutorial bent, for lack of a better term. So these trials started at 2 o'clock, and heard the evidence from the state, and this, what happened to the trooper did this, and all the tests that are given, the roadside tests and the breathalyzer, and the state rested. And by the way, Ms. Cates, I forgot I didn't know what time I started. So I know she said 10 minutes. I'm going to comment on that too, by the way. But in fact, have you ever anybody know a lawyer who can talk in less than 10 minutes? I don't know. I don't have any lawyer jokes, but when she said 10 minutes or less, or I'm thinking, have you asked the right person? I spent yesterday in Dobson with about 5 people, about 20 minutes apiece in their cases. So I'm not sure I can talk I'm going to try. I'm going to try to talk less than 10 minutes. But these cases were prosecuted by the district attorney, and as soon as the state finished, I said guilty. Guilty. And the defense lawyer, I don't remember who it was, but the defense lawyer stood up and said, well, Judge, don't I get a chance to speak? I said, well, that's a good idea too. I'll hear you too. So I backed off of that. And then the assault on a female case came up, and all about the physical this and that and the other and all the stuff that went on. And state rested. And I said, guilty. So, and the other defense attorney stood up and said, well, Judge, don't I get a chance to speak? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'll hear you too. So there was a third case that day. There were literally 3 in a row where I just heard the case. I heard the state's evidence. I thought, guilty, they're guilty. And I didn't hear the other case until they asked me if they could be heard. So I've learned from that. I want to tell you I've learned from that. So now I hear both sides before I find them guilty. But that's just to let you know. Don't quote me on any defense attorneys. Defense attorneys would not appreciate my humor. Again, I'm trying to be good with the time. I was here the first week in December, and we worked many, many trials. I was very, very tired at the end of that first week. And on Friday, I left the courthouse, and I ran out of gas as I left on I believe it's Green Street. I ran out of gas, and there was I'd sat there for a minute wondering what I'm going to do, and fortunately, an officer who had been in court testifying that day happened to pass by where I was sitting with my car, and he offered to take me to a gas station. And please understand, I was just dirt tired. It's 7 o'clock at night is what time we finished and went away. I said, thank you very much. Let's go get gas. And he had a 2-gallon gas can. So I went with him in his car to the nearest gas station, and I got out. I wasn't going to ask him to do something like that for me. So I got out of the car and took my gas can and got my gas out of the machine there, gas dispenser. And I got back in the car, the police cruiser, and I'm sitting down. I leaned my head back, and we weren't moving. So I looked over at the officer, and he looked over at me, and he said, Judge, aren't you going to pay for that? I said, yeah, I think I'll go pay for that. That was how I began my career as a judge. So lots happened since then. Lots happened. And again, she asked me to speak for 10 or 11 minutes, and it occurred to me, not only have you ever heard a lawyer who can talk for less than 10 minutes about anything? And I'm always amazed when I ask questions in court that there's never a yes or no answer. It's a long, expanded answer, and kind of reminds me of congressmen. You just don't get a yes or no answer. It's always something really expanded. Because I could talk for a long, long time about this sweet little child that came up with me and my grandchildren. I've got 2 beautiful granddaughters, 2 grandsons, and I could tell you that they're already showing signs of genius, and they're showing signs of world-class dancing and literature, and they're going to be world-class leaders, I'm sure. So I could talk for a long time about my grandchildren, as I hope you could as well. I could talk for a long time about this beautiful, wonderful place. I wasn't sure. I don't want to stand here and criticize anybody about anything, but Dr. Nicola mentioned something that was very interesting to me, and that was the history of people who talked about education 100 years ago. So I don't have to say anything except you know what's going on out there. It's just this pervasive. The world has really changed since I came along, and I was a little kid, and We prayed in class every day. We said the Pledge of Allegiance, and I still revere the flag. I could tell you what I feel about people who don't respect the flag, and I don't want to sound too over the board about that. But I could talk a long time about Wesleyan Christian Academy and how thankful we all should be and are for what the alternative is. So we could talk for a long time about that. And forgive me if I get some water. I could talk for a long, long time about all I see is problems. I see people's problems every single day. I sat with 200 or 300 people in Dobson yesterday. And that's also interesting because when I started to get up here, I was thinking, I don't have bailiffs here. I don't have any deputy sheriffs. There's nobody to call out a crowd if they get in a fight or arguments over here or cell phones. There's nobody to say, in fact, I don't have to say anything. They just do it. But I don't have any crowd control. And I know there's nobody here that's going to jail today. That's good. I don't have to worry about handcuffs and all that stuff and bond motions and all that. But that's what I could, that I live, I could talk a long time about. And when Ms. Cates asked me to speak about 4 weeks ago, I literally spent a few days. I've been on the road to Dobson, Surrey County, and Stokes County. And so I waited for this inspiration. And I'm thinking, the Lord's going to tell me exactly what I need to say. And I waited for a week. I waited for about 10 days. And I'm on the road and staying at hotels. And I'm waiting, okay? So I think I did. Then I had this little conversation, which I think I heard God's voice, Glenn. And I was a gentle, loving father was saying, where have you been for 71 years? Have you not listened to me? Or have you been asleep? You've got opinion about everything, and you can make some suggestions. And I'm thinking, well, that's probably true. I've got an opinion about everything. And I think most of us who are older than 25 or 30 have experienced enough to have an opinion about just about everything. And if you ask me, I'll probably tell you. But otherwise, I'll keep that to myself. So it occurred to me, yes, I can make some suggestions, and maybe they would be worth listening to. And I do know now, after a lot of experience with custody cases and DSS cases, let me say, talking with a lot of children can understand at a really early age. I used to have a rule about not talking with children younger than about 10 in custody cases. But being a grandfather, I know that 4- and 5-year-old children can understand, and you know they can. They can tell you stuff. They listen. They pay attention. They know good from bad, hurt from happiness, and so these kids can understand a lot of this, and I'm thankful for that because my suggestion and I know there's different ages here. I found out just recently, maybe they won't be teenagers and 20-year-olds here, so I had to kind of restruct that. But my suggestions for the young people, and I know we've got 6 or 7 up to maybe 12 or 13. Is there any 14, 15, 16-year-olds here? Is anybody that age? I wouldn't think so. So for young people who can and will understand, I just ask you, beg you to listen to these parents and teachers. They know what they're talking about. They're here because they love you, they want to teach you, they want to instruct you, they want to guide you, they want to influence you the right way. So you really need to listen to the older people. I hope you will. Yesterday in Dobson, I had to sentence a young man who, 24 years old, and we had a talk about his circumstances. And I said, well, tell me what's going on? What's wrong? He said, I don't care. I just don't care. I just don't care. So I talked to him about 20 minutes, a lot longer than I'm going to talk here, quite frankly. But I talked to him and explained some things to him. And he said, well, I'm smart. I know what you're talking about. And I said, well, but do you listen? And he said, well, I don't know. I just don't care. So my point is, we talked about things. I hope he listens. And I hope that anyone who would listen to your parents and your teachers will pay attention to that and learn from that. Young people, be serious about education. Be serious about that. Do the best you can every step of the way, every test, every grade, and keep that going because that could lead to really great success, however you define that. To me, success is just being happy with who you are, being happy with your job, being happy with your family, having God's peace, that to me is success. I learned to believe that as I was getting older, a long time ago, when I heard a woman named Kay James. I don't know if you ever heard of Kay Cole James, out of Hampton, Virginia. I heard her at a pregnancy care dinner talk 30 some years ago. She was unknown at the time. The lady background was she was the 13th child born to a poor family, a mother, and all of the mother's friends said, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't have a 13th child. It's just, you can't handle it. You can't pay for it. You can't do it. Well, she had Kay Coles. Short story, Kay James went, and by the way, her circumstances involved chaos and drugs and a lot of ugliness. And she ended up going to Hampton University. Later on, I found out she served in George Allen's, the governor of Virginia's cabinet, as a secretary of human resources, I believe it was. And then she became no less than George Bush's Office of Personnel Management Director, and then Regent University Dean of Government. I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful, articulate woman. And I just happened, maybe for the first time, I was thinking, there's no reason to fail in this country. There's just no reason to fail. And somebody may disagree with that. And how about culture, and how about background, how about neighborhood or whatever? But if you say that, you're really restricting somebody's ability to achieve and get out of all that if you think that. And my hope is that people would, no matter what their circumstances, realize you got to get education, and you don't give up, and you seek to have that success as how you define it, and don't let the naysayers keep you down. Dream big dreams. Young people, whatever age, you got to dream big dreams. Nobody ever got anywhere, did anything special, just wanted to be average. I want to be like everybody else. Now, we're all average, and that's okay. I love being anonymous in this country, believe me, for a lot of reasons. Some of you may understand that. I don't mind being average and anonymous, but if you want to be a dancer, a teacher, a lawyer, whatever, you want to be the best you can be, and don't just settle to be the average whatever. And I never watched the reality shows and talent shows and all that. But Glenn told me about a month ago, he said, you got to see this kid on television. She sings and she's wonderful. And I said, okay, I'll watch that. Well, this little girl who is 12 years old, 2 years ago, she just out of the blue sky, for no reason, wanted to be a ventriloquist. And she just wanted to teach herself. And some of you may have seen that a couple of nights ago. This 12-year-old girl won $1 million on America Got Talent. Unbelievable. And I wouldn't particularly want the show in Vegas. I'm not sure I'd want that. But she got a headline show in Vegas. There's nothing in Vegas that attracts me, quite frankly, really. But she wanted to be something and wanted to do something and wanted to be the best. And she is the best. Did anybody see that by any chance? American Got? I mean, she is unbelievable. Just somebody who just a little girl, and she wanted to do something with her life and be something. And now she sure is. And that's just an amazing thing to me, to watch somebody just step out of the crowd and be somebody like that. And that'll affect the rest of her life, absolutely. Everybody else is older. So we just talk to young people, and everybody else here is older than 12 or 13 or 14. No teenagers, I think we said, no 13, 14, 15-year-olds. So everybody else is older, and I'm older. And I don't mind that. I talk about being an old guy in court a lot. I'm an old guy. And it's one reason why it lets me say what I say to a lot of people, because I'm the old guy. And you ought to listen to older people. Some cultures have it right. They really respect older people. They really respect gray hair and people who've lived a long, long time and should know more than the young people. And I think they do. Mark Twain said during his later years, there's nothing worse, no worse experience than growing old. That's what he said. He didn't like getting old. I don't mind that, and I think that we should embrace getting older. I remember where I was when I turned 40 downtown. I was going to work in the middle of Greensboro, and that day, May 20th, 1986, I thought, I'm 40 years old today. This is really going fast. I'll bet I'll be 50 just like that, or 60, and now I'm 71 years old. It's gone really, really fast. But I embrace that, and I don't mind that. Some of you may be like me. You look in the mirror and you say, who is that old guy? You ever do that? Anybody? You have to raise your hand, but who is that person? I mean, I like the pictures of when I was in the Army in Vietnam and all this hair and all this, but I'm not that. It's okay. It's all right. God has just taught me, just embrace getting older. It's a lot of good things about that. We're here for one thing. My dad was 49 years old when he passed away, and what I wouldn't give to have him see my grandchildren, what I wouldn't give. He would have loved my grandkids. He was a funny guy, gregarious, happy. He was a really wonderful person, and he would have loved my children. And I love my grandchildren, but that's because the Lord has let me stay here. I lost my best friend and a relative in Vietnam, and I'm here with a wonderful family, wonderful stories to tell about the last now 50 years. I embrace that. That's okay. I don't mind the stranger in the mirror most of the time, but it's okay. We need to be there, and this is not meant to be repetitious of Ms. Moffitt's, but we need to be there for the people we're close to and who need us, and not in an intrusive way or a smothering way, but I would hope that someday maybe Emily or Ryan would say, Papa, what do you think about this? And I'll tell them what I think about that. If they don't ask me, I probably won't tell them because they've got two wonderful parents, other grandparents. But you don't have to be intrusive or smothering to be there for somebody else. And of course, being there means we pray for them all the time. And again, I just echo what Ms. Moffitt said, and you've heard that. Pray for them. There's so much difference today than when I came along. So many more challenges. Like I said, if you sat in court with me one day, you'd just be amazed with what's going on. And I wouldn't wish that part on anybody. But we pray that our children don't have to go through some of those things. I hope we can pray for them about jobs and they get the right jobs. And I'm a believer, if you like what you do, you never work a day in your life. You just really don't. I've had fun for 40 years. And I'll tell you, it's a joy to do what I do. It's a challenge. And I take it very, very seriously to deal with people's lives, to try to solve their problems, to help them out of the dilemma they're in. But that's an opportunity also, because I've been able to stay here a long time. And we need to really, really pray for your children's relationships. Again, I don't want to go too far into that, except there's lots of problems, and I see them every single day. Young lady this week, just tearful as a victim in an assault case, and she's testifying, and she says, I just don't understand it. I just get treated like junk all the time. I don't understand it. This is my fourth boyfriend. I don't understand this. Well, then that opened the door. Your fourth time around? So I talked to her for about 20 minutes. So we need to pray that our children don't get in that revolving door, or even the first time, for a bad situation. And the predators, as you know, are out there. They're wolves to take advantage of the sheep. And I say that every single day, and that's why I make a big point about it. We need to pray for those children's relationships right now, boys and the girls, so that God will bring that person to be equally yoked into their lives, and that they won't have these other problems. I really think we need to. I came this morning and just looked at the sunlight and the clouds in the sky, and just enjoy every single day. You ever know anybody that just look like they drink vinegar all the time? I mean, drink vinegar, and then you talk to them, and you're just so unpleasant. You just make me. Oh, I just hate that. But there's something to enjoy all the time. Maybe that's part of being older. But the sky, I watch trees, I watch grass, I watch little bitty piddling things that probably don't mean anything to anybody, in appreciation of God's creation, because I know He created that, and I want to enjoy His creation as long as I can. Love those you're close to deeply, like it's not forever, because it isn't. It isn't forever. And again, with reference to yesterday in Dobson, a lot happens in Dobson. I was very busy with 200 or 300 people in Dobson yesterday. But at the end of the day, the victim witness coordinator came into my office, and with tears in her eyes, she was just crying. She said, I want you to know that Everything we did today makes me want to go home and hug my daughter every single day. She's 3 years old. Everything that we do is emotional, and she wants to go home and hug that little child. So we don't need all the emotional stuff. We just should know, we should feel, we're going to love those people close to us as if it's not going to go on forever. And lastly, and I hope I'm not too much over 10 minutes. I didn't keep up with it. Lastly, share the good news. Share the good news. Who can say John 3:16 for? Anybody want to say John 3:16? For God so loved the world, gave his Son, should not perish, but have everlasting life. That's what it's all about. And two others, and I'll be finished. I did want to, as we share the good news, and by the way, the reason I'm saying this, Emily walked through my house the other night, and she was listening to television, and she happened to make the comment, she wasn't listening to the TV, but she heard something. So she says, "There's never any good news." 7 years old, heard just a snippet. There's never any good news. Well, the good news is John 3:16 and Romans 10:9. I love these particular verses, and I'll try to be quick with this. If you will confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God hath raised him from the dead, you will be saved. That's his promise. Now I'm going to leave the theology and the nuances to parents and teachers, but I think it's important to finish with the good news. And John 14:6, and this is so important. I love to read this, and I could talk to you all afternoon about this one verse, because Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me." And the world will tell you there's lots of ways. There's lots of ways to heaven. There's lots of lifestyles that are okay. A lot's going on in this world today that wasn't there when I was a young man. But Jesus Christ is the only way. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Don't let anybody tell you differently. It ain't 10 or 12, 15 ways. It is not. I thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a wonderful crowd. It's so uplifting to me to just be here. Thank you, Ms. Moffitt. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Emily. That sweet child is why I'm here. Happy Grandfather's Day to all of you. God bless you. Thank you.